Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to week 2. I see people are starting to jump on. Let's see. Hi, Beth. Hi, Susan. Welcome. Hi, Mindy. Hi, Sarah. Go ahead and say hello and let us know you're here in the chat box. If you weren't here live last week and you're not familiar with this platform, let me just give you a real quick rundown once again. When you hover with your cursor across the bottom of your image, a toolbar comes up and there is a chat bubble, and that's where you can comment throughout the whole session, right? A lot of times I'll ask you a question, or you can just comment anytime you want, and other people that are on the that are here with us, everyone participating, can see your comments and can respond back and forth. So it's kind of a way you can interact during the mentoring session. Helps you stay awake, helps you stay focused, helps you be present and really dialed into what you're learning. If you have a question, we'll do Q&A at the end of the training session or the mentoring session today, and that's what we'll do typically every time. We have an hour of mentoring, and then we'll do Q&A, and I'll stay on as long as needed to answer any questions. So if you've had questions from the last week, or if you have questions about anything that comes up as we're talking today, then go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. So not in the chat. If you put them in the chat, it's likely that I will not be able to, they'll get lost in the chat, like I won't catch them. Tannen's going to be watching the chat box to make sure to pop some into the Q&A if anyone is confused about that. But if it would be really super helpful if you put them in the Q&A box. And a lot of times I think your questions get answered as we go, so that's why we're just saving them to the end. Kind of helps us keep the flow. I'll try and, last week I had a little bit of trouble of kind of toggling back and forth between my screen and looking at the chat. I'm hoping that that can be a little smoother this week. It's one of those things that I am testing out and trying to figure out how to get used to doing. So thanks for your patience with that. Also, before we get started, I want to make sure everybody has a clean sheet of paper with them, or a gremlin piece of paper, or a scratch piece of paper if you don't want to be using extra paper or going through extra paper. Because remember, as we have these mentoring sessions, it is the prime time for gremlins to come up. I want you to have a dedicated gremlin sheet with you, prepared to be listening for those and watching for those that come up during our session today, so that you can capture those right away and just get them out of your way, so that you don't have any of those obstacles as you as you finish up, and you don't want those clouding your ability to learn and grow either. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and can everybody hear me? Is there anybody everyone? Yes? Okay, awesome. All right. Hopefully all that was on the recording. I was basically just, for those of you who didn't hear me, I'll just really quickly recap. Chat box is where you mention things, interact during the session. The Q&A box is if you have a specific question that you want me to answer at the end of the session. The session will last about an hour, and then anytime we have at the end. Plus, I will stay for as long as needed. So if you have additional questions, you don't have, and not everyone has to stay on and listen, but if you have questions that need answered, I'll stay on and answer as many questions as there are, but make sure those go in the Q&A box, not in the chat box. Oh, great. I'm glad you made lots of copies of your gremlin sheet. Yes, everybody needs to have at least a gremlin sheet or a plain piece of paper or a scratch piece of paper if you don't want to waste more paper. Either way, however you want to do it, have a set of a piece of paper that's dedicated right now for capturing those gremlins as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Hopefully everybody saw this in your email yesterday. It should have been delivered to you around 9:30 yesterday morning Mountain Time. If you're not in my time zone, obviously it was different for you. But I really want you to get used to the timing of when these types of things are going to be in your inbox. I want you to be searching for them. If you have Gmail and that automatically filters things for you into promotions and things like that, it's very likely that it's going to go into your promotions folder. There's a couple ways for you to prevent that. One, when you search for it and you go and look for it in your promotions folder, actually click on the email and drag it and put it into the primary folder. And that should start training your email to do that. You can also create a filter, and you do that by clicking on the little gear icon for settings up in the right-hand corner. And one of the options under that menu is create a filter, and you just kind of go through the prompts. Create a filter that anything that comes from my email address or has Wholehearted Home in the message, or you can create filters for any of that type of thing, and have it automatically go to your primary. And that way you will not have to search for it every single time. You should get the email with the module and survey link anytime that's applicable, but you should get that. We're going to be doing them on having them delivered to you on Sunday so that you're able to look at that and do any of the home and family work that you want to do on your Sundays, and be in preparation to have our mentoring session on Monday. And you'll also get a reminder directly from Zoom with your unique link every week. So if you're searching for that, also maybe create a filter or drag that into your primary so that is automatically sent there also. It comes, like I said, it comes from Zoom, and it is a reminder that you should get the day before, and it has your unique link. If you still are having trouble finding your link or using the correct link, because when you originally signed up, and those of you who paid the commitment fee, you were sent a confirmation with a link that is not a valid link any longer. We had to make some changes, and so the new link that you got and the one that you're getting in reminders is the correct one. If you're still having trouble, go ahead and send me a text or an email, and Tannen, my assistant, will, my cute little assistant that is so helpful during this, she will unregister you and re-register you, which will send you a new confirmation link. Does that make sense? Okay, so hopefully we don't have anyone that is having those problems right now. All right, so let's get going. So this week is getting intentional. We're starting our ripple, okay? So last week we were just laying the foundations, and this week we're going to start having that ripple out into our families. Hopefully you guys have had the chance to print this out, or at least download it so you have it on your computer. First thing we're going to talk about is our definition for this week. So this week our definition is self-concept. It's our perception of our behavior, our abilities, our values, our goals, and our unique characteristics. It's how you picture yourself. It's your mental picture of you. It's how you recognize your authentic self. And the reason this is our definition to kind of jumpstart us this week is in order for you to be successful in making changes and seeing the results that you want, you have to believe that you are actually capable of making these results. Now remember, you have this gremlin sheet. So anything that I say that you immediately contradict in your mind, that is a gremlin. So write those things down and remember to call them out as gremlins. Don't just write down, I'm not capable, I can't do anything. say, I have a gremlin that, if you call them a gremlin, it helps with that separation from making it something that's real. So I want you guys to be really aware of how you call those gremlins out. Quit you giving them extra power by stating them as facts, but calling them as what they are, as gremlins and misconceptions that are not serving you, right? So, but anytime you have good results in your life or in anything that you're working towards, or seeing, anytime you have results or that you see progress that contradicts the way you see yourself, you'll automatically dismiss it as luck or as a fluke or as, oh, it was just an accident, it's just coincidence. And when you do that, you rob yourself of hope and the continued progress that could be possible. And you do that because you can't repeat an accident, right? So we have to actively fight to improve our own personal self-concepts. And this is how we do this. You do it by asking yourself why, with only 3 possible answers. So you ask yourself, why have you made progress? In fact, some of you have already taken the survey and you were asked how you feel about your 1% progress. Was that hard? If you've taken the survey, go ahead and tell me, was it hard to be excited about your 1% progress this week? I only gave you a couple of answers as options. One, yeah, it was hard, huh? Hopefully as we go, one answer was good, I'm making progress. Another one was amazing. And another one was, I think I am Superwoman. And I am so looking forward to the time when we hit in this program where people start to say, yeah, I am Superwoman. Because that is the extent of self-concept change I want to see in everybody. It's hard to admit your 1% as progress, right? I gotta tell you, you're gonna be so sick of me preaching 1% to you, but it is one of it. You know, I claim to be someone who offers simple solutions. That 1%, how much more simple could it get? But it has such huge impact, and it has such it's so significant. I mean, you're going to get sick of me saying the same things over and over, but it's because the solutions really are that simple. But we're going to, also on the survey, I asked you to give yourself credit, for being excited about why you made progress. So, sorry, I'm trying to look at my notes to make sure I don't forget to tell you something. One of the reasons why it's hard, it looks like most people that are commenting said they were happy about their progress, but you did have a hard time. Okay, great. Not great. I don't want you to have a hard time. I want you to gradually get easier and easier. But sorry, no, that's not great, but I'm glad you're able to recognize it. So if we are really timid about recognizing our progress, that is going to bleed over into our family. When we are able to learn to accept that and show and model excitement and joy over even the smallest amount of progress, you're really going to give your family and those around you permission to be joyful and happy and content with their progress also. But one of the things that we're going to be working on, and I'm going to show you how to do this for your family, and this is also in the survey. This is one of the last questions in the survey, is I asked you, why do you think you made progress? And there's only 3 possible answers. When you ask why somebody thinks something was successful, whether it was progress or why they got so many answers correctly on a test, or why do you think your room looks so great? Oh, whoops. Am I frozen? You know what, Tannen? My battery on my computer says it must not be plugged in on your desk. All right, Tannen said I'm frozen. Can you guys see me? Okay, good. Okay, good. And as I'm looking at my frozen, I'm realizing my computer's plugged in, but it must not be plugged in to the wall because it's not showing as charging. That will be problematic if I lose my video. Okay, there we go. Check. Okay, we're good. Sorry. Oh, scared me there for a minute. Okay, so there's only 3 possible answers when you are asking, or when you're focusing on and recognizing progress or successes. So when I asked you, why do you think you made progress? I only gave you 3 choices. One was, actually, what was the options? One was, that you're learning and growing every day, or that you're getting braver and stronger and more inspired to action, or that you lied about your progress. And most of you, how many of you had a hard time deciding which to choose? Let's see. Oops, 1 second. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I apologize. Hang on a second. But really, that's the only 3, those are the only 3 possibilities. Either you're learning more, you're getting better at, like, working harder at making progress, or you lied about it, or you cheated, or, so there's no other reason for progress to be made. And it's funny, you can do this for your kids too, because, well, the reason this is important, I already told you it's important about self-concept, but this actual action of having to make yourself recognize why something's happening is you building evidence to combat those gremlins that say things like, I can't do this. I've never had this. I always give up. I never have good results. All these gremlins that you guys keep telling me about, but that we all feel. You're not alone. We all feel this. This is one of the reasons why this is so huge of this stage of this program, because these are the things that are going to get in our way and sabotage us as we move forward. And when we can stop and recognize why we are making progress, or why we see, that even those 1%, those just the little steps that we're making progress forward, you have to acknowledge that it's because you're either learning more or that you're working harder and you're trying, because there's no other way it could happen. It's not accident. It's not a fluke. It's not, just a coincidence. And so I'm going to be asking you those kind of things frequently, but you can also help your children to start focusing on their 1% progress. And this is one of those sneaky little things that I'm just going to sneak in right here and just kind of lay the seed for. We'll be doing this a little bit more intentionally later on. But if your kids come home and they show you a test, instead of looking and worrying about what they missed, and because a lot of times we look at those and we're like, oh, you missed 3, let's focus on figuring out how to not do that next time, right? And then you end up focusing on all the negative. Instead, ask them, oh my gosh, you got so many right. Why do you think you got so many right? The only 3 acceptable answers are, I worked hard, I'm learning more, or I cheated. That's the only way you can get answers right. Maybe you'd ask them this when it comes to, like, why they look so clean and put together, or why do you think your room looks so clean? Or why do you think, when it comes to participating around the house, oh my gosh, why do you think your backpack is on the hook so nice and neat, and your shoes are right here underneath it, where you can find them? Why do you think that is? One, I took the effort to do it, right? I just did it. Or I remembered that's what you asked me to, Mom, or someone else did it. It is the habit of starting to recognize that you really do affect your outcomes, and your positive outcomes are the ones we want to focus on. Okay. So you should be you should be noticing in your module, there's kind of a pattern. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but there's a pattern of it will be included each week in your module. So each week we're going to be addressing our thinking. So that's talking about our daily mindset practices and being aware of our thinking. At this stage in our program, we are going to be really heavily focused on these daily mindset practices and vision. But you'll see as we move through the program, it kind of shifts. We get less heavy on that, and we start moving to go heavier on creating the system and the habits and stuff like that. So you just want you to know that it's not always going to be this focused on your mindset and all that kind of stuff, but we have to get that out of the way. We've got to address it, and we've got to be aggressive at addressing it, because this is going to be our biggest stumbling block. It's not the how-tos. The work is actually easy. The organization, that's a one and done easy. This stuff that we're working and really focusing on now is these are the hardest modules to go through. These are going to be the hardest weeks. So if we can just muscle your way past this, it gets easier and easier and easier, because these foundations create that successful environment that makes everything else work. Okay, so we're going to be every week we'll talk about our thinking and daily mindset practices. We're going to keep getting clear on your vision. This is the vision of what we're working towards in your mind and in the minds of your family to help you stay motivated and committed, wholeheartedly in, right? That's what we're focusing on. We'll also be adding habits to be refining. Everybody's on at different levels. And some of these habits I'm going to be talking about, you're going to be like, oh, I do that anyway. Or maybe some of you are like, oh, I don't really think that's important. It's not that big of a deal. I can do that. I can do something different, whatever. Everybody has different viewpoints on these things, and everybody has different levels of success of where the habit is already playing a part in their life. I just want you to recognize that as I talk about different habits each week, test out what I'm teaching you by doing it the way I tell you to do it. Okay. I just want you to start to learn. I feel like I just want to say, you've got to just trust me. But I know that it's hard for me to convey to you that I know the results and know how significant some of the things I'm asking you to do are just key pieces that may not seem that significant to you. It really all works together, and it can be very simple, but don't ignore small pieces just because you can't quite see how they're going together. I'll try my hardest to paint the picture and the vision of it, but I just want to say, just trust me. I'm owning this. This is my genius, to be able to see how pieces connect and how significant how they impact the outcome. I tell you, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because this is a gift I have been given, and it makes a difference. So you've got to just trust me and stick with me as we move through this. But those habits, they're going to support you, and they're even going to organically create the results that we're looking for. So just trust me. And then each week we'll also be having steps to start setting up your work system. Like I said, we're heavy on the mindset and stuff, and we're adding some habits, and we're just touching on system. But it'll start to shift where we'll start being more system, because we'll have all this other foundational stuff down pat. Okay. So our intention's the same, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how all I did was emphasize a few different pieces of it, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Right now, I want to just highlight the guiding principles for this week. So in case you're wondering why I'm including guiding principles, these are really the rules. These are like your rules for that you need to adopt to make this a whole program work. Okay, so last week I introduced to you starting with you, not them, right? And being passionate, not perfect. This week, we're adding 2 more principles or rules. I don't like the word rules. I like guiding principles. That just seems so much more nurturing, doesn't it? But really, these are your rules. No. So the guiding principles are they're not replacing the ones from the week before. We're just adding to them. And maybe as I'm thinking this out loud, maybe I'll have my assistant make a note. Maybe I'll have a place that maybe I'll add a sheet to next week's module that actually lists them from week to week, so you have them in your access to them and reminded about them week to week. That's probably a good idea, because they do build on each other. You don't throw last week's away and not think about it again. We're just adding a little bit of pieces at a time so you don't feel overwhelmed and you just see the hope and the progress that you're making. This week, the 2 that we're adding, the first one is paving your progress with self-compassion. Oh, good. Yes, I like that too, Angela. Thanks. Hopefully you've noticed, and I think you have, based on what I've heard people comment on the Facebook group and the people who filled out the survey so far, I think you're seeing how progress, that this self-compassion is so significant to making progress. And like I said before, if you're thinking you just want the how-to part of this system and you just want to ignore all this, oolah rula mind, train your brain kind of focus things right now, and you want to ignore that, just give me the how-tos and let me get on with it. I just don't have time for this. And that's okay if you are, I'm not putting you down if that is what's going through your mind. I just want you to recognize that I think that might not be a way of thinking that will serve you in being successful in this. If you're thinking you just want the how-to system, you're going to end up with basically a folder of digital files that you download each week, and you'll probably never look at them, and you probably won't have the significant changes in your home and family that you were hoping for when you signed up for this group. I actually love, it reminds me of that quote that, and I don't know the exact quote, but it's in Brene Brown's Power of Vulnerability speech. It's not her TED Talk, it's like the audiobook version of it. And she talks about how if all we needed was how-tos, we'd all be skinny, rich, healthy, happy, stress-free, because there is no shortage of information out there on the internet of how to do all that. I mean, there's a million experts out there telling us how to do all these things, or even to have the results that we're looking for. But the reason why how-tos don't work by themselves is because we don't often most people don't address the things that get in our way of making those how-tos become a reality. And that is why we're putting so much emphasis on this compassion and mindset work. So don't discount it. The next principle is inspire, not require, for family cooperation. And this is for any action you want to inspire someone to take. I call this a mom superpower. Like, this is one of those things like the 1% that we're not going to go into tons of detail today, but we are going to talk about taking and inspiring your kids by how you're going to share. But we'll be talking about this all the rest of the time. This is a key principle that is like gold, okay? It will drastically change the results you have in your home. When you require action from your family, you invite resistance and power struggle, and it's exhausting, and it results in inconsistency because your kids wear you out, and it brings contention and broken relationships. But when you focus on inspiring action, your results are like night and day different. They result in willing cooperation, in peace, in simple, easy to manage parenting, consistency that you can count on, you can plan on, and it really results in much better relationships. And really, I'm just really briefly going to tell you the Inspire formula, okay? If you want to write this down, because this is something to pull yourself back to if you feel like you're stuck or falling back into old habits. And like I said, this is not the only time we're going to talk about this, but number one is setting the example. And when I say that, capture any gremlins you need to come to mind, because we're working on this line by line, but setting the example is the first part of inspiring. Also, the second step to the formula is providing everything that is needed for the person you're inspiring to be successful at taking whatever action is you're trying to get them to take, okay? And then the third thing is that you focus on the benefits. And the fourth thing is you show lots of love, support, and empathy if there has to be consequences suffered. So that means if someone uses their agency, because you're not requiring, you're inspiring them to do the correct actions. If they go against that and choose incorrect actions, then you support them and love them and show a lot of empathy as they have to experience consequences. And again, I'm very vaguely telling you about this because it'll be really heavily done later on, but I wanted to point this out here because you are still working on a couple of those. We're starting with the foundations of setting the example and keeping the focus on sharing that example and bringing that to the forefront of your family's mind. And this is a personal and side note, and hopefully this isn't offensive to anybody, but if you really think about it, this is how our Father in Heaven models parenting to us as his children. To me, that's the way I stop and think about it. I think there's never an instance where he takes our agency away. There's a lot of times our agency results in hard, difficult consequences, but he never takes that agency away. He always sets the example. He provides everything we need to be successful. He focuses on telling us all the benefits of doing it the way that is laid out, and gives us lots of love, support, and empathy when we misuse our agency. So to me, that makes it an absolute principle in my life that I really I don't really struggle, but I really focus on creating that as a guiding principle in every area of what? Oh, Tannen's telling me to check the chat box. I think number 2 is, okay, yes. Let me read them one more time. Okay, so this inspire formula is set at the example. Number 2, provide everything that is needed to be successful. Number 3 is focusing on the benefits. And number 4, show lots of love, support, and empathy when consequences are suffered. Okay, all right. So, time goes so fast. Either that or I just like to talk. So this week, our daily mindset practice. So just recapping what we've done this past week. This past week we talked about, and you should have been implementing, watching for and recognizing gremlins and how to combat them. We're capturing them by writing them down, shredding or burning them so that they do not take root and get stamped down and stuck in our hearts and in our minds. And in an effort to combat them, we are replacing them with compassionate whisper. I call them compassionate whispers. They're things you need to hear when you are at your most vulnerable, and giving yourself permission to take whatever that next step is. Okay. Let's see. Do you guys not see me? Can you see me? All I can see is you. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, good. All right, sorry. This is just really a new platform for me to be doing it like this, and I apologize. So, a lot of you have been mentioning you feel like that you have a problem with temper when it comes to your family, and that that's one of your gremlins that keeps coming up, is you feel like you are grumpy or are angry or have a quick trigger temper. This gremlin work that we've been talking about, if you do it on a regular basis, like, be serious about it, not just capturing things that are like labeling things to yourself, but also capturing just like bad feelings you have, like maybe you're frustrated, maybe you're angry, you know, and just writing down on those papers, I feel angry because, you know, or I feel annoyed because, and just write whatever comes to mind and just get all of those emotions and recognize all of that stuff that is in you. This is kind of taking, you know, gremlins to the 2.0 stage, right? Capture first those thoughts about yourself that label yourself and affect your self-concept. Then also capture those negative emotions that come up that you just don't want to have spew onto your family. Because what happens is we just kind of tamp them down and try to ignore them. Oops, am I frozen? Okay, we just try to ignore them, and then they build up, and then something triggers it, and then we explode. And when we say, oh, I feel like I have a short temper or quick-tempered, that's because we're not dealing with the emotions that build up. And it's just one of the things that contributes to it. So if you're feeling like that is something, even if that you don't really think that's one of your problems, doing this on a regular basis will prevent that from becoming a problem, especially when you're making changes and starting to deal more intentionally with your kids in the program a little bit later. But just taking that up a notch and making that a serious daily habit. But the thing you also have to remember is it's a vacuum. Once you empty that out and you destroy those, you have to fill it with something good so that you don't just let the negative stuff fill it right back in. And I told you this before, especially in the Q&A we had last week. You might say the same gremlins or talk about the same things that frustrate you over and over and over. Do it as many times as you need to. And if you're feeling like you need to do more and more of it, then make sure you're filling it back up with the positive that you really need to hear. And asking for help, asking for heavenly help if you believe in that, because I think it is huge to act. It's a huge resource to access, because you're not alone in this process. Okay. So what your days should look like so far from our daily mindset practices and the thing that we did last week is you should be spending some time in your sacred space every day, filling yourself up with those compassion whispers and permissions. You should be having looking at your checklist, at least looking at it and just saying, what is my 1% today? If your 1% is being more intentional about doing your mindset practices, okay, that's fine. That's a 1%. Or it could be choosing another one of the steps on the checklist. And then you're capturing and making it a practice to get rid of gremlins every single day. That's all that your daily practices should look like so far. This week, we are going to take our intention, our practice that we're going to add to that. We're going to continue doing everything I've asked you to this last week when it comes to your daily practice. And you can see on the checklist that I've kind of moved the one and done things over to the first column so that you can look at that. And I want you to be able to reflect on what we've already done and go ahead and mark them off again, because that's great inspiration for you to see your own progress. And if you still have things to work on, they're still on your checklist. So you're not behind because they're still on your checklist. But then there are a few things that we're doing that are daily practices that we're continuing on, as well as things that you need to make sure you do at least weekly. And so that's how the checklist is kind of broken up this week. And that's how it's going to continue to be broken up. We'll have recap list, your daily and weekly tasks, and then new one and done things that for the current week. Okay. So really take that time to be able to let yourself kind of report to yourself and check in where you are and celebrate and recognize the progress. But this week, we're going to be really intentional about how we're going to start modeling this to our kids. So last week we were starting to get it settled into ourselves and really accept it. And then now we've got to be really intentional about bringing it to our families. So there's a couple things to ponder. This is just breaking down our intention. So how do you think, I want you guys to go ahead and say in the chat box, how do you think practicing self-compassion and embracing your imperfections is teaching your family that they're lovable, that they belong, they're wanted in just the way they are and needed just the way they are, and that they can be happy and worthy of joy? How do you think that that is actually teaching your family when you model that? Anybody have any ideas? Waiting in the chat to see if anybody has it. How do you think that models? How do you think they're learning that when you model? Kids are like sponges. What they see us do is what they tend to do. That's true. It shows that you can make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. It builds their self-esteem. We're the hardest on ourselves. You know, I love it. Love, love, love it. You're right. Every single one of you. Great. I'm so glad you're getting this. And that's why I wanted you to respond in the chat. Not to quiz you, but I want to make sure that it's really sinking in as to why modeling this is so important when it comes to this program. Because when you put yourself down, you're not modeling joy, right? You don't appear happy. You don't model things. You don't model that. I mean, when you are not being self-compassionate and not being okay with having imperfections, you're modeling that only things that don't have flaws are lovable. And that's not true. We love our kids. They're not perfect. We love our husbands. They're not perfect. Why does that not come to us, right? Why are we not able to have that same in return? And if you're not lovable, kids hear in their heads, you know, they look at that and they think, oh, if mom's not even lovable, then I must not be lovable, and no one wants anything that's not lovable around. I must not belong. You know, it all kind of blends together. So yeah, it's huge. What do you think is going through your kids' minds as they see you acting courageously and modeling learning? When you attend classes like this, when you read books, when you work on action steps, what do you think your permission you're giving them? Go ahead and type them in. I'm not going to wait for them, but everybody else can read them and see them, and it'll be on the recordings too, because I love that, that everyone can see the chats even on the recording. But it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and answer it just for time's sake. But it doesn't. You're really telling them that it doesn't matter where they're at. That there's always room for learning and growth. That they're not a finished product. That even mom is still learning. So if mom can be as old as she is, then of course you are, being at your age, have room to learn and grow, and that is so huge. And how safe does your family feel to reach out for help and support and encouragement when they know that you have struggles and you also have strengths, and you're open and honest with sharing them? Basically, what you're teaching them is that it's good to celebrate your successes, that it's okay for them to be happy about things. They don't have to only celebrate and be success when they are the most successful. That'll never happen. There's always someone that's better than you, right? And when you have struggles, that doesn't mean you're broken or unfixable. It just means it's a stage. And when we are open and honest with our children about that in our own lives, it really gives them permission to do that same. One of the ways we're going to do this is this idea of being a little hokey. I wanted you to have an acronym to try and remember. This is one of the suggestions I'm going to give you this week about how to intentionally bring those examples that we just talked about from our intention into consciously sharing them with our kids. Because maybe they're not seeing you with your sacred space. That's okay, because that's us, right? That's our sacred, that's why we call it our sacred space. It's for us to be able to just be vulnerable and be settled in. But we want to be able to start modeling this to our kids by how we talk to them. So the idea of using hokey language as opposed to labeling language, and this is an example I have laid out for you. Hokey stands for honest observation, plus kindness and empathy, it equals being inspired, feeling hopeful, feeling having upward thinking. Okay, that's what I mean by inspired. So here's an example. When we use labeling language, so like those gremlins that we hear, you know, but if we say those out loud and our children hear them, or other people around us hear them, or maybe we say it about ourselves, or maybe we even say it about somebody else. And this is an example. If you say something like, "Oh, I'm so stupid," that's totally labeling us, right? "I can't believe I did that. I'm always doing things wrong." You're not showing yourself any compassion. You're giving yourself no room for mistakes, and you're it's more labeling. What this does is when someone else hears that come out of our mouths, it creates a thought spiral. And there, you can read this. I mean, they instantaneously hear, "Oh my gosh, in our family, when you make mistakes, that must mean you're stupid." This is not conscious thinking. This is unconscious thinking. This is their brain automatically coming to these conclusions based on what you model when you say those types of things, or when you act that way towards yourself or towards other people. And I tell you, if you're getting the okay, I gotta stop this. If you're getting the gremlin that, "Oh my gosh, I've ruined my family because I do this all the time," I can tell you, I struggle with this to this day. This is not a 100% or nothing concept. This is something you will catch yourself doing for probably the rest of your life. But no, understanding this and learning to self-correct, or learning to catch yourself and listen to this and start modeling catching in yourself, it's one of those progressive things you can model, is catching yourself. So don't get overwhelmed by making this perfect. Just start practicing this. So anyway, if you say that kind of stuff, your child or anyone who hears you goes through this kind of a thought spiral, as opposed to, you could say, "Oh my gosh, I totally did this wrong." That's honest observation, saying, "Oh my gosh, I did something wrong," right? Good thing we're all here to learn and grow. That's this is just an example, but that's offering kindness and empathy, because you're saying we're all in this. Everybody's like this. It's not just me, right? Empathy is how we relate to each other. It's like, yeah, I'm not the only one. Other people understand this, right? What can I do to make it better now? Or what can I do to do it differently next time? That is you recognizing there is a path. There is you can make changes. You can do something different. They hear, in contrast to the list above, that in your family it's okay to make mistakes, that you can learn and grow every day, that you can forgive and encourage and support each other to try again, that it's okay to try, because if you make mistakes you can learn, that you're not alone, that your family can love you even when you're not perfect. You're not alone. They've got your back. They're loved. There's hope. You're brave. You're inspired. Do you see the difference? I'm not going to take too long to read through these anymore, because I am a time optimist, I think, when it comes to talking about all this. But so what we're going to try and do, what I want you to do this week, is to try to model self-compassion and compassion for others by looking for opportunities to use that hokey language. And remember, go ahead and review from your module what hokey stands for. Honest observation, kindness, empathy, to be inspired, okay? So consciously listen for labeling statements that actually verbally come out of your mouth. Not just the gremlins you write down, but the things that actually come out of your mouth. They're definitive statements that you say, "I am," or "you are," or that where you literally are labeling somebody, or passing a judgment on something, okay? And instead, if you can catch yourself before you say it, try to think through hokey, the word hokey, and okay, honest observation. How can I say something that's just observing, but still giving me room to be kind and empathetic and have room for growth? If you don't catch yourself, it's okay, because we are not 100%. We are not 100%. This does not have to be perfect. I tell you, I have known this and have been practicing this since, I think I read in articles where I learned this, like when my oldest child, which is 22 years old, was like in diapers. That's how long ago I did this. And I am still catching myself every day. I still catch myself. I catch myself when I'm on camera with you saying things where I am labeling things definitively. This is not a 100% or nothing. Just get this in your mind and have it in the back of your head. And something that we all say that is one of these labeling things is good job. That is so toxic, but everyone says it. I hear myself say that all the time, and I have to stop and not label, because it's a judgment. Even though it's a good judgment, it's still a judgment. So instead, I have to stop and think of ways to observe, honestly observe, and point out kind things. Anyway, I'm just telling you, don't get overwhelmed by this. But what you can do is you can stop and correct your language. So if you, without thinking, say something like, I'm so bad at this, I don't know why I even tried. You hear yourself say it and you recognize it, and you can say, wait a minute, that's not true. Might not yet be a strength, but I can certainly get better with time and effort, right? Because you're saying this in front of your kids, because you want to look for these opportunities to model being self-compassionate. Everyone has to start somewhere. You're empathizing with everyone around them, including the person that was overhearing you. Everybody's got to start somewhere, right? We can get better. That tells your kids they're just like you. What you're saying for you, it applies to them too. You're including everybody. That's the empathy part of this, right? And in our family, we can keep trying. That's it. That's telling them, have hope, be inspired. And then I did put in here, shamelessly solicit high fives or maybe a chest bump. I tend to like to be a little on the goofy side when I'm doing something like this with pointing these out, because sometimes I feel like it's a little contrived because I'm so intentionally trying to bring that example out, but it's so worth it. And so sometimes I'm a little cheesy. That's not your style, that's okay. And you can casually look for opportunities to share permissions, compassion whispers, and dealing with gremlins with your kids. So when they're doing, a lot of you have actually mentioned that you're already starting to do this with your families. That there are especially your little ones are already seeing a mom's, sacred space, or seeing mom doing different things. Totally look for those opportunities. That is our mindset practice this week, is to look for those opportunities, and you can read that example and ask questions if you want. When it comes to our vision work, this week I had you write out why you joined the group, where you are, recognizing and acknowledging where your family is today, because you can't change what you're not aware of, right? So last week you should have taken the time to write where you are today. I hope you did that. If you haven't, don't skip that step, because this will also help you stay really determined to stick with the program, because you don't want to keep the results that you are like, I'm fed up, I don't want this anymore, right? There's going to be a time in the program where you're going to be like, oh, this is not worth it. Like, this is hard, because a change is uncomfortable, but it doesn't, the uncomfortable feeling doesn't last forever. I promise you it doesn't. But having this awareness that you've written out and you can reflect back on as, oh my gosh, I don't want to go back there, as you see yourself make little progress away from it, that will be a good resource for you to kind of get that extra push of motivation when you're starting to feel the slump about week 4 or 5, and you're like, oh, I don't know if this is ever really going to work. Is this really going to come together? And it'll help you push through that slump. Okay. In fact, if you're not even 100% committed to doing this program yet, this is the time to really put detail into that step. Because if the pains and the experiences are strong enough that you're experiencing now, that you can remember them and recognize them as something you don't want to continue, and your clarity about the vision you're hoping for, which was the second step I asked you to do last week, is strong enough, that is what will get you, like I said, keep moving. It's, let's see, I also want you to remember, if you're not 100% committed to this, it doesn't matter what your results have been in the past. With this focus and intention, that we're talking about in the program, it's not something you've ever done before. Even if you've done pieces of it, you've never done this exact process. You've never taken these exact steps in this order with this intention. So a lot of you are concerned about your past results or past failures that you, or what you're labeling as past failures, or, you know, not believing that you can have different results. Just recognize that you've never done this exactly the way you're being taught. If you totally just decide to commit to doing this regularly and keep going through the program, you should have new results, because this is a brand new thing you have never ever done before. Just keep focusing on that 1%. So this week, I want you to hang the family picture. I want you to try and get it printed if it's not already printed, or I want you to put it wherever you can see it on a regular basis. This is going to be your inspiration to keep that vision in your mind. And if you haven't yet, or if you have done your vision experience, I would like you to record it. It was on the revision experience instructions to record it as an option, but this is something that I would love you to do to add to your mindset practice. Like I said, this beginning, we're really heavy on mindset. We've got to get those out of the way. So I want you to record it, and my suggestion to you is that you listen to it before you go to bed. Listening to it before you go to bed, really quickly in your own voice, read it like you are lovingly telling yourself of this most beautiful, wonderful image of this family that you so desperately want to have, this family culture that you so desperately want to experience. When you hear yourself, it can be a huge motivation, and you hear it in your own voice, which is very powerful. To your talking, you hear yourself talking to your own spirit, right? Your own inner self. So that's the vision step I'd like you to take this week. The habit, we're going to talk about habits, and I am looking at the time, and I have probably 15 more minutes of material to cover. So this is going to be one of those challenges that I need to refine as I'm moving forward. My goal is to be 1 hour, and I'd love to honor everybody's time, but I also need to honor being able to mentor you and give you the information I need. And I think one of the things that I'm recognizing is, one of the challenges is when I work with mentors, clients one-on-one, I'm able to get kind of a response and a back and forth with a mentoring client, so I know exactly the things they need to hear and can keep it in a concise period of time. With this group program, I love that I'm able to work with so many people at one time, and I am so grateful for that. But what I'm realizing is I have to guess the challenges because I'm not having the back and forth with an individual. And so I feel like what I usually can fit into 1 hour, because I'm guessing and trying to cover all of the possible hurdles and struggles that people might be facing, instead of just reacting and being intuitive with a single person, that I think that is where my time keeps going further. So if, with your permission, I understand if you need to jump off, and know that at the 1 hour mark is where the habits that we're going to talk about this week and the system starts, and I'm gauging that it's going to be between 15 and 30 more minutes. So if you can stick around, I would love to still have you, and I will work through this as quick as possible. If you need to go, thank you for your understanding, and I will see how we can adjust this as we move forward, or maybe we'll just have to anticipate an hour and a half for our classes each week. Anyway, so our habits we're forming this week. So this, we're going to start moving past our mindset and start incorporating some habits in what you're going to model for personal responsibility. So teaching personal responsibility is the first place we're going to start. And there are some organic ways to do this. And what I mean by that is, there are some things that you do as a mom, as well as some things that you require of your kids We don't require, we inspire them to do as the kids, right? That organically result in everyone in your family starting to be more aware of how they affect the space around them, okay? And that's what personal responsibility is. And the thing that we what I call all the jobs of personal responsibility, I call them daily dues. Okay, so daily dues are jobs around your house that fall under the personal care and upkeep category. They're the things that you personally, how you affect the space around you, the people around you, and how you care for your own personal self. That's why it's called personal responsibility. It is not anybody else's responsibility to care for or manage how you impact your environment around you. It is something you need to be aware of, and you need to take steps to be responsible for, okay? So each person, these things are hygiene, clothing, dining, like your own food and you know, your dishes and things like that, and the space that you can call your own. Before you can expect family to learn personal responsibility, of course, we have to model it ourselves. And it starts the same place for every single person. Doesn't matter if you're the dad, the mom, the kids, everybody does their daily dues. And there are three things that a lot of, that I always, this is my quick tip, okay? These are three things that will really help your family organically learn this, is if you don't ever outsource these three jobs when your kids, especially when your children are learning. If these habits and your daily dues, and you are like, you personally as the mom are personal responsibility superhero, which you totally could be, I don't know. But if you feel like you've got these down pat, then maybe you can decide to outsource these by paying someone to do this for you personally. But when your children are learning, and while anybody, whether it's you, your children, your husband, if you guys are learning to have these as a habit, and personal responsibility is still something that, you know, if you're still passing things up or leaving messes around the house, or don't take care of all of your, you know, all of your own space and things, then these are still things that are not in 100% ingrained, and that's totally fine. I'm guessing there's not a single person in our group that does this perfectly. Anyway, but these three things are the three jobs that I think are essential to personal responsibility getting ingrained in our brain. One is folding and putting away your own clothes. Two is making your own bed. And three, cleaning up your personal messes. Okay, so we'll talk a lot about that, but we're going to talk about how to model that first, and then we're going to talk about taking that to your children over the next week. 4 basic rules about daily dues. Each family member's daily dues are exactly the same, no matter what your age or status. You never grow out of taking personal responsibility. Number 2 is you cannot add a chore or something that you want your children to do on a daily basis to the daily do list. It can only, you might choose different things than I have on this example daily dues card here, but it has to fall under personal care and upkeep. You can't say, oh, well, so-and-so's job is to take the garbage out every day. That is not, you cannot put that on a daily do. Daily do is only personal care and upkeep, okay? Yeah, the third rule about daily dues is they're done before free time. And no, there are basic, it's our basic contribution to our family and home. So the work is done before free time is available to us. And you cannot introduce daily dues to your family as a standard until you can model what it looks like. So I don't want you to go, when we get ready to introduce this to your family, I will give you tickets, which are going to be one of the building blocks for your system, daily dues tickets and pouches that that you'll get to put up in your command station, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But I do not want you to this week go start telling your kids about daily do's. If they start asking you what you're doing, or if they start noticing things that you're doing differently, then you can talk about them, but just kind of give them little hints. Say, oh, don't worry, we're going to get around to it. We're going to have a family meeting and I'm going to tell you all about it. Don't worry, it's going to be awesome. Just kind of give them a hint that there's something to come, but don't necessarily worry about making this a rule, because I'm emphatic about this not being something that you lay out as a law to your family if you are not modeling this as an example. And you don't have to be perfect to be a model. All you have to be is improving and making progress and taking steps. You do not have to be perfect at your daily do's, but you need to have touched each of these and evaluated them and made progress on them so that you can claim that progress and that intention when you do introduce them to your family. Does that make sense? Is everybody understanding where I'm getting at? Okay. All right. So we're going to stop. What you're to do this week is to evaluate your own daily do habits and begin making any changes to model them, okay? So over here, I've got this is what your daily do's ticket is going to look like, okay? And these are the categories that I suggest. If I will give you a blank version of this if you want to tailor it to you, but you need to if you do tailor it, make sure it follows the rules, okay? So I want you to start at the top of the list, and oh my gosh, my nose hasn't hit, drive me crazy. The top of the list is room and groom, okay? So we're gonna start there this week. So I want you to start at the top of the list, and if you already have one of these as a habit, I just want you to ask yourself two things. I want you to ask yourself, is it already a habit? If it is there anything you can do to refine it and make it upgrade that habit? For instance, okay, so the very first one is getting ready for the day, basically. Getting dressed, doing your hair, brushing your teeth, and I put face on there. It's not on the card, but for moms, it might include putting on makeup. If makeup's not your thing, that's okay. That's why it's in parentheses. But maybe you take that up a notch. Maybe you do decide to put mascara on instead. Maybe you don't do that all the time, only when you go out. But maybe you just take these up to an upgraded level, so that there's something that's visibly noticeable. So maybe to you, getting dressed and around the house might be putting on sweats and a t-shirt. Well, maybe instead of putting on sweats and a t-shirt, maybe you put on clothes that you, and not maybe, you should put on clothes that you can leave the house without feeling insecure if someone sees you. This hair, dress, and makeup is hair, dress, and teeth. This is the grooming that helps with your own personal self-esteem. It also will help your children as they learn this habit too. All right, so ask yourself, if this is already a habit, how can you upgrade it? And if it's not a habit, what do you need to do to start making it a habit? So here's some problem solving tips when it comes to starting with getting dressed, doing your hair, brushing your teeth, and doing your makeup every day. All right, so my rule for this, for me personally, and I would recommend this, is I do this before anything. And I know some of you are going to say, but wait, after my kids go to school, I exercise, or you have something that prevents you from doing this. That is not actually an excuse, because there are things. You don't sleep in your exercise wear, probably. There are ways that you can look like you've changed from sleep mode to whatever your next step is, including shoes. Okay, so if you're exercising, you probably need to put shoes. Shoes are like the superpower of this particular habit, because if you get dressed with an intention, whatever your next step is, if your next step is to exercise, great. Get up, get dressed, put your hair up, and comb your hair and put it in however you want it to exercise, so it's out of your face. You're still doing your hair. You still are brushing your teeth. You're still, if you don't want to put makeup on beforehand, that's okay. Make sure your face is wiped off. And, you just, you don't have to stay in your pajamas or in sleep mode or in that way of the not ready to get moving and being productive way of dress and being unkept. It is such a huge productivity tip to do this. And I know there's a million gremlins that are coming up to you right now as you're hearing me say this, but the first thing I would suggest that you do is track how long it takes you to get ready. So if this isn't a huge habit, you don't already know this, and even if this is a huge habit, if you're wanting to know how to refine it or upgrade it, still do this. Take the next couple of days and intentionally track. How long does it take you to take a shower? How long does it take you to dry your hair and fix your hair and put your makeup on and get dressed? Track how long it takes you, because you need to know how much time you need to allow in order for you to have a get ready period in the morning before you get working on anything else, even if it is getting ready for your workout. Or even if it is, if you don't have that, obviously that's not probably one of my issues, but maybe it will be someday. That'll be my next upgrade, right? But this is a non-negotiable to me. It is get up, get ready right away. Okay, so track how long it takes you, and then give yourself enough time to have that happen before other distractions from your home and family start. So I would suggest getting up about 15 minutes earlier. And I put on here some tips on how to get up earlier. And one is don't snooze. And I have this link to a Facebook post on the Simply Inspired Solutions Facebook group. I'm not going to go ahead and read that right now because we're so short on time. But go ahead and check that out. There is some good solid science behind why not to snooze, why you should never snooze. And then I have a wake up declaration. That is another thing that's been a huge help for me in revising how my morning goes. And I included a link down here to that, and I will actually add all of these things into the Facebook group under files also. How I use that is when I'm laying down to go to bed, I have it on my phone. It's a Google file, so I have it saved in my Google Drive. It's a Google Doc, and the one I linked to you is a Google Doc. So you can save a copy to your drive, and if you save a copy to your drive, you'll be able to edit it and make any changes that you might want. So when I go to bed, I just read it as I'm going to bed, and there's a place where it tells you to stop and think about how your first of your morning's going to go and what exactly you're going to do, and it helps you reiterate to your mind what time you're going to bed, how much sleep you're going to get, what time you're waking up. And it's funny because your mind will already wake you up before your alarm. Your mind will already get you ready to wake up when you read the wake up declaration. It's super awesome. That's totally optional. If it's something that will support you, it would be great. Oh, that's awesome, Jillian. I love that you're having to go. So you don't wear shoes around your house, Sarah? Well, that is something, I don't know. To me, shoes make it so you can't get back in bed. To me, shoes make me feel energized. And I read this in a book like a million years ago when I was learning, just trying to figure out. It was in a book called The Sidetracked Home Executives. I think it was written like in the 70s. It's a super old book, but it was one of their rules, and it was like a game changer rule for me. When I started putting on shoes, it made all the difference in how productive I felt. It made me feel I mean, I work at home. I'm at home all the time, and I always have shoes. So I don't know. That's up to you if shoes are not or not a thing at your house, then I don't know how you get around that. But I think it's a power move for me. So I'm going to stick with, I think it's worth it. But that's up to you. Give yourself permission to take a nap if you need it. That's another way to make sure that you get up on time, because if you tell yourself, I can get up right now because I totally have permission to take a nap, which is why I put this little funny picture on the side, because that just makes me laugh. And look for ways to actually simplify your routine. I also put another link there. One of my soapboxes is showering at night. And I did a huge Facebook post about it, so I put the link there also if you want to read that. That's one of those very, very simple changes that doesn't take any effort really, and the efforts are so far outweigh the drawbacks, and the benefits are out of this world in comparison to any objection you could have. And there's not going to be anyone who convinced me otherwise. It is one of my soapbox topics. But the bar you're aiming for in this getting ready for is to leave your house confident and presentable. It's not, date night, hair, dress, and makeup. You know what I mean? The bar is confident and presentable, because if you think about, that's what you want your kids to feel. You want them to feel like they go to school and people see them and they say, oh, that person cares about themselves. They take care of the way they look. You reflect that, you model that you have care for yourself. You have personal care is an important part of your life. You also model that you feel better about yourself, so you exude more confidence, and you believe in your own self-confidence. It actually changes the way we act. It changes the way we, the choices we make throughout the day. It's just huge, and it's what you want your kids to be learning too. And it really does make them self-aware. It makes them think about what clothes they're putting on their body, how they're taking care of themselves. And then the second thing on the list after hair, dress, hair, and teeth is making your bed. Now, I know there's a lot of people who end up with lots of objections about bed making because I am one of those people who I hate to get in a bed that has tucked in sheets. So I've problem solved that. We actually use duvets instead of top sheets. And that way I don't have the tucked in sheet problem. And my beds are incredibly easy to make. But whatever you have to do, do not skip this step. I put down there 5 reasons to make your bed every day, okay? Making your bed is a turnaround habit, okay? You might already do this, and if you do, that's awesome. If you don't, this is just one of those simple things that will have a huge impact on your family and modeling these daily do's. If your kids learn to make their beds, you can't expect them to make their beds if you don't do it. And if they make their beds, their rooms will be cleaner. Well, let me just go through the benefits. One, when you get up and make your bed in the morning, it is a small accomplishment. It actually makes you feel more productive. And when you feel productive, you are more productive. It actually sets the tone for your entire day, okay? It actually encourages the rest of your room to stay tight and clean, like I was just about to say about kids' rooms. If the biggest thing in your room, which is typically your bed, is messy, there's no reason to keep any of the rest of the space in your room clean. And if your room is messy, why do you think kids would care if their room is messy? They look at your room and are like, Mom, what the heck, this is total double standard. Anyway. Oh, that's cool, Susan and Janae. I'm assuming these are going to be shoe alternatives. Okay, awesome. I'll have to look at those when I can read the chat a little bit longer. But yeah, so making your bed actually makes it look like mess around your room is out of place. So it'll help you keep your entire room tidy, and it'll teach your kids to keep their rooms more tidy too. It kind of emphasizes what's out of place because it looks so nice. And it does lead to more productivity. One task encourages another and so on. It shows that you care about yourself and your home, which actually lifts your mood. It's the same as taking care of your own body. It lifts your mood, it lightens your emotional burdens, and it just makes you happier. And when it looks good, it actually feels good, and that's what you want to come to at the end of the day. That's how your going to bed will be an encouragement and a positive end of the day, not like, oh, I didn't get everything done. You go in there with heavy heart and heavy mind, and that's not what you want. You want how you want to finish your day. So your bed encourages that good feeling at the end of the day too. It doesn't have to be perfect, cute. I'm not talking about having a Pinterest, Instagram worthy home. If you do have an Instagram worthy home, high five. That is totally okay. If you don't feel like you have an Instagram worthy home, that is not the goal here. The goal is progress. The goal is upgrading your habits and setting an example. Clean is better than picture worthy, okay? Clean and tidy is your goal. And that is something I want to emphasize here, is we are not comparing ourselves to other people in the group. Let's see, I wrote something down to make sure I told everybody that. Make sure that as we share our progress in the group, make sure that you're excited for everybody at their stage in their journey and not comparing yourself to other people's successes. Remember what you're focusing on, and this is one of the reasons why I want you to, and in fact, take before and after pictures. I didn't say that, but that would be a great thing to do. Take a picture of your room today, and then you can compare it to after you've gone through these steps and started to implement these different steps through the program, because you need to compare your progress to your starting point. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you to write out your starting point for your big family, like your family culture that you want to have changed. Do the same thing with your own personal progress when it comes to your habits. Don't be comparing yourself to someone else and someone else's journey. When we do that, we are not accurately recognizing the successes that we're having. We want to be, like I said, we want to be supportive and excited for each other in the Facebook group, but we have to be willing to celebrate our own successes, because if you don't, then this is what you're saying. You're saying that you are not willing to celebrate your success unless you're the most successful in the group. And what that is really saying is that you can only feel good if other people are doing worse. And I doubt that is what you really want to. Have you ever thought about it that way? When you're not willing to celebrate your successes because you don't think they're good enough or they're not better than other people's successes, that is like saying you only think it's worth celebrating if other people are worse. I know that's not what you want. I know that's not who you are. I know you want to celebrate and be happy for other people, so you have to model that by being being happy for yourself. Compare yourself to your own journey. Focus on your 1% progress, not where other people are, and high five everybody for doing the same in their own right. So I only broke down those two. If you have those two set, then go on to tidying your personal space. I guarantee you that there's not a person in this group that can look around their room and not find at least one drawer or one cupboard or one shelf or a box under their bed that can't be tidied or cleaned out or something like that. If your room is a little more disheveled than someone who has maybe already gone through this process of creating order in their room, then that's okay. You don't have to pull the things out from under your bed. Start with the surface, but don't move on to the next thing until you've got the hairdress and teeth down and you've got your major bed. Those are the only two I think you could focus on this week. If you're ready to focus further, then go ahead and focus on tidying your personal space. And if you think, oh, my personal space is awesome, my bedroom is the bomb, then Um, sharing my room right now, the gremlins are coming. Is that with Janae? Is that with children or just with your husband? Okay. When it comes to doing this, focus on your own personal stuff first. Don't worry about your husband's stuff. We're going to be doing the same. You know how we did mindset practices and we got them in our own mind and got comfortable with them ourselves, and then this week we're starting to talk about them out to our children. We're going to do the same things with your habits. You get comfortable with them, you start making progress, and then you're going to start sharing them with your spouse and sharing them with your kids by pointing them out and finding opportunities to be like, oh my gosh, I love getting in my bed at night. It just looks so pretty. I just want to jump on it and just squish into my blanket and pillows. Those pillows just make me feel happy. Like, just saying that isn't helping inspire them to want to have that benefit themselves. Or your husband might look at it and be like, oh my gosh, that is really nice. Thank you for doing that. And they start recognizing that. Maybe they'll even start helping do that type of thing. Anyway, so if you have, like I said, the only two that I'm focusing on are those two basics. If you want to move to the next one, go ahead and move to the next one. Next week is actually going to include one of the bonuses, and it's called Invisible Laundry. So next week we'll have our regular mentoring session, and then we will have a bonus call later in the week called Invisible Laundry. So we're going to be talking about a laundry system and helping get that set up for your family. So that's why I think we'll stick with the room and groom and make progress in that this week. All right, finally, and we are at a full hour and a half here. We're going to start creating our system, and this is just laying some groundwork, and it's starting to get the materials for your command station. So what the command station is, this is the place in your house that where you're going to keep all the elements of the work system, because part of this program is creating a household work system that teaches your kids how to do the work, gets everything, or organizes all the jobs that need to be done in your house, fairly distributes them, helps you manage it as a mom really simply without putting a lot of time and effort into it. And one of the elements we need is a command station, a place where you manage all of that and all of the tools are kept. The first thing we're going to obtain is going to be a whiteboard or a frame. Now, this is the size I like, because we're going to end up using them. I'm suggesting 20 by 26 size. If that feels overwhelming to you, I'm going to let you guys, this is 1000% customizable to you, but I want you to kind of give you a glimpse of how it's going to be used in the future. That's why I put this kind of a grid on top of here, because there's 4 parts. So if you are somebody who likes to do groupings of frames or something, you could maybe use 4 different frames put together, or if you already have a whiteboard in your house, maybe that is something that you can already use. But I think what you need to choose an area in your home that is going to fit approximately this big of either whiteboard or frame. I really like the idea of getting a frame and putting some cute decorative paper in it that I like, and then you use the glass as your dry erase board, because any glass can be used as a dry erase. So you don't have to have a whiteboard. And a lot of times frames feel more decorative, and you are not as hesitant to put them in a place that someone might see. But this does need to be someplace that your whole family has access to. You can't hide this in your closet or put this on your bathroom door that no one sees. You can put it up in private space where maybe public doesn't see, but it does need to be a space where it is a high traffic area where everybody in your home has access to, okay? Because this is something that you're going to need to be passing. Most people that I've worked with end up doing it somewhere around their gathering space, like in their kitchen or the hall of, where all the bedrooms are, or something like that. when my children were younger and we had this set up, because now at this stage, we don't have the individual tickets like I've told you guys before. Well, I don't know, maybe I haven't told you that before. Anyway, my family has grown to the second stage of the program, or not the program, but the work system, where we now just have stewardship. So we don't no longer have to have this command station because all my family is older, right? So, but at the time when my children were little and we had these, I kept them back down the hall by everybody's bedrooms. Everybody passed that. I passed it when I went, to talk to the kids or to tuck them in good night or that type of thing, or to wake them up in the morning. Who am I kidding? I never wake my kids up. My kids wake themselves up. But when I would go in and say hello in the mornings when they were awake. But it was a place that I frequently walked by, but also the children all had access to, but wasn't necessarily out in the middle of my living room or something where guests or people who came to the house would see. You have to decide where this is going to be for you. So your to-dos this week is to pick an area in your home. You can make it as cute as it's going to look as cute as you want it to. You can totally customize it. So I don't think it has to be hidden away from public, but I know there are people in the group who have certain styles and are minimalists, or things that they don't like excess stuff on their walls. If you are feeling any kind of resistance to having a command station, ask yourself if what you're exchanging. Now, I am saying this with lots of love, and I'm asking you to think about this for yourself, but saying this with all love and compassion, if your perfect Instagram quality home is worth not taking the opportunity to have a system that will organically teach your children personal responsibility, will help your family all feel connected and unified and working together, will give you an opportunity to have a teaching and mentoring relationship with your children without taking a ton of your time, so you can get rid of a lot of the mom guilt you have and have really strong relationships as you're trying to work on your business or maybe your passion project or something like that. Just ask yourself, is it worth it to be able to have those perfect Instagram posts of your perfectly decorated home there's nothing that you've added to it that has any kind of that wasn't given to you by your decorator or something, like I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing it out there, some scenarios as to possibly why this might be a challenge for some of you. And like I said, I'm telling you this with 100% love and compassion. I love beautiful things. I love homes to be neat and decorated and beautiful, and I admire that, and I aim for it and strive for it. But I have lived this, and I would not change the results from this system for any of that. It actually makes me choked up thinking of, I would not change the relationships I have with my kids and the opportunity I've gotten to teach and nurture and mentor them by having this kind of a culture for any amount of beautiful, perfect, because it doesn't last forever. You'll have there's a time when that might be more of a reality in your life. Sorry, I don't know why that made me so emotional, but it's just important to me. And I just really want you to feel that and experience that with your family. So anyway, my suggestion for you this week, the to-dos, decide where you want it and get your mind wrapped around having it if you want to have these as a result. And then buy either a whiteboard or a cute frame or a combination of 4 frames. So you could have 4 individual frames. And we'll be using this in quadrants as we move on. Right now, I put my little family picture on there to show you guys that one quadrant of your whiteboard is going to be your inspiration. It's going to be a place where you and all your family can see what you're aiming for to help inspire the family culture. And if you have as we move on and go through the system, there might be rooms or results that you're wanting. You might want to put a picture, a Pinterest quality, front room or something like that, picture up there to inspire kids, or put goals like a vacation you're going on, or maybe a family outing or something like that you guys want to work towards. That's going to be kind of act as your family's little vision inspire board in one of the corners of that. So just so you know, that's why I put my little inspiration picture there, and you're going to want to make sure the space you choose also includes an area for about 10 by 10 space for each person in your family. So if you have three, if you have you and your husband and 2 kids, this is all you would need. You could maybe do more of them down here below, totally up to you. These are going to be your storage pouches for your actual work system. And I will talk more about those later on. We finally got to the end, and I am way over, and I see 2 questions. Okay. So Susan, you said, my kids are all little, 7 and under. I know all kids are different, but should I really be expecting them to really notice the changes that I'm making? So no, they are not going to just organically make, be aware of those changes. That's why this week, and I know you put that on really early, right after the beginning of, so hopefully I've answered that right after the beginning we started. You put that question in. So hopefully I've answered that. That's why you're going to intentionally start looking for ways to share that with them. And listen for the times that specifically, I said this in the instructions in the module, but in case in case it's not clear, look for ways or times when they are frustrated about something. You actually, not you, sorry, someone else gave an example. They helped their kid just focus on the 1% when they were working with their child on a math project problem that really helped them get through that. Just look for those times when your children are struggling, or looking for those times when they need that encouragement, and give the opportunity to say, hey, I've been learning about something lately, and do you want me to show you something that might help? That type of thing. And little kids, they are the most receptive. You have like prime age children. They just eat up mama's wisdom. They still think the sun and moon sets with you, and they are still so absorbent. It's awesome. So just look for those intentional times to actually have those conversations, and read the examples in the module and see if that answers your question. All right. Okay, so Sarah, what would you say instead of good job? So instead of good job, and the reason why I didn't go into this super long before, but good job it is a label. Even though it's a positive label, it is still a label. It intones judgment. So if you don't say good job, so say you say good job all the time, you think you're encouraging. If you don't say good job, then what the child's subconscious or even their conscious mind sometimes hears is, oh, I didn't get a good job. So it actually creates this praise junkie mentality in children, where they're only looking for the praise, they're not looking for the results. So instead of saying good job, use the hokey language. So use honest observation. So like, okay, say they bring home a homework and they have a score. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, good job, you say, oh my heck, you're observing, honest observation. You got a 97%. That's just observing what is there. Or maybe they draw a picture. Be like, tell me about it. Oh my heck, tell me about it. Oh, I love that you showed me this. You're observing your own feelings about the action, not about what they showed you. You know what I mean? You also could say, so honest observations are what you would say instead, where you're not judging if something is good or bad. You can say things that you can tell about your feelings towards something. So say if they show you artwork, you can be like, you can ask them questions. You can point out things you see. There is a lot of purple in that picture. Wow, that really stands out. That is an observation. That color, when I looked at that, that's the first thing that jumped out to me. That's showing them that you care about what they're showing you without you judging. The other thing, and when it comes to like actions, like say they did something that you were appreciative of, that you'd be like, oh, good job, I'm so glad you did that, you know, thank you for doing that. Instead of focus on the results of what they do instead of what the action of what they do. So focus on the benefits. So say they helped you make dinner. You're like, man, instead of saying, oh, good job, you guys, you're such a big helper. Actually saying you're such a big helper is a little bit of a label, but you can be like, instead tell them how you feel, the result of their helping. Does that make sense? So instead of saying you are such a big helper, that is a label, right? You can say, I love when you help me. That makes me so happy. Or I feel so happy. I catch myself. This is a hard thing to do. I catch myself. I never want you to say that makes me happy, because you don't want to tell them that their actions make you have some kind of a reaction. Instead, you just describe honest observation. When you help me, I feel so happy. That's a result. Honest observation, an observation of results. Does that make sense? Oh, that good job thing kills me so much. This is like, but you know, like I said, when all these language things, just do your best. It does not have to be 100%. I'm still catching myself doing this, and I still had wonderful results when it comes to having good relationships and good experiences with my children. Did I do it all perfect? No, we're not even thinking that we're going to get through this perfect. And you should look at me and catch me and see that I'm still struggling this. This is why I do this work, right? Because you do the work that you need. But hopefully that answers your question, some scenarios that you can use. All right. I like the way you did that just then. That would be a good replacement. Oh, thanks, Camille. I like the way you did that just then. Would that be a good replacement? Yeah, because that's just describing your feeling. Let me just double check. I like the way you did that. Let me sit on that for a second, Camille. Let me respond to you in a second, okay? I do think you can say how you feel about something. Yeah, I think that's definitely better. I'm going to say yes. Sorry, I don't mean to internalize it so much. I just am trying to think of when I'm trying to think of a response, or I'm listening to a response, I'm trying to anticipate what the child might hear from what you're saying. Does that make sense? And I don't know that saying I like or I dislike something, I think that's fine. I think I said describing your own feelings. If you're ever wondering, it's always safe to describe the result as opposed to the action. So make the honest observation about the result instead of the thing or the person. Does that make sense? So if you're ever in question, like here I'm in a question thinking, I'm not sure if that is 100% objective, because you're saying you like something or don't like something, and I don't like to pass a judgment saying approved or not approved. Does that make sense? I kind of like to describe the results. So it's like, oh, that makes me so happy, or oh, like I said that again, oh, I feel so happy. Don't say it makes me happy. Oh, listen to me. See how you're this is a constant challenge, right? So you can say things like, I feel so happy when I look at that, or man, I just love the way I feel that when I see you. I just love the way I feel when I see you helping your little sister, or oh, I love that you show me and share with me the success you have at school, you know, or I don't know, something like that. Like try to focus on the results, not on the actual thing, because that the reason you do that is that starts to teach children that to not look for the praise, but look for how they impact the world. Does that make sense? So, I love that, Sarah. You want them to be motivated by results, and that will help them start to recognize how their actions are impacting the world around them. So when you respond to them not praising their actions, but praising the results of their actions, that's what they'll start craving. They'll start craving good results. And so they'll start being able to self-correct and self-analyze what gets good results versus what doesn't get good results. Does that make sense? Okay, so Susan, do we need to get additional frames for each person? No, don't get frames for each person. The only thing I want you to do is either get a whiteboard or a frame that you can use as a whiteboard. That's approximately that big. I like that big. I just think smaller, you're cutting yourself off. But you can do individual, like 4 individual frames to equal that big of a thing. Don't worry about the little, like dotted line boxes. Those are going to be storage pouches that I will give you some options later on. We'll talk about those a little bit down the road. I can't decide if I'm going to introduce them next week or wait till week 4. We're still in the testing phase of how I lay this out for you. So it may be in the next week or 2, but I tell you about that, okay? And then Angela, can you text us before you do the additional class, the laundry class? Yes, but I do want you guys to get in the habit. One of the reasons why I am not babying you guys too much when it comes to getting you the information right to your fingertips is because I need you to be proactive in being part of the Facebook group, because it is a very integral part. So I'm trying to train you and inspire you. If you want to be at the things live, you will check your Facebook. And I know not everybody is in love with checking Facebook, but you can check it really easy by clicking on the group and not just going through your news feed. Don't count on don't count on seeing all of the things you need to see on the Facebook group by once a week going into your news feed. That's not what you need to do. You need to intentionally go into the group and check on it on a regular basis and interact. The interaction keeps it in your mind, responding to, oh my gosh, I was saying, responding to the posts. I forgot to do the drawing. I'll do that live on the Facebook group today for the drawing, because every time you interact and you offer suggestions or you respond to a post that I ask for a response, you get a drawing, or you get an entry into the drawing each week for one-on-one mentoring sessions. And why that might be important to you, I don't know if any of you are interested in winning that, but by doing that, I will have a one-on-one meeting just with you where we can problem solve and answer individual challenges that you might be having, and you can use it any time during the program and up to 30 days after the program as you're implementing things. So I think that is a huge value, because it's really targeted at question and problem solving, specifically for the challenges that you might be facing in implementing your program. So it's worth your time to jump on the Facebook group regularly to not only see what's going on, but also to interact and earn those spots if you can, but also to give other people encouragement and to be able to keep yourself focused and moving towards your goal. with all this. So I don't know if I'm going to text you before the live, but I did post it that it was going to go live. And maybe I'll tag everybody on the Facebook group. How's that, Angela? Anyway, I don't know. I'll think about that. All right, it looks like all the questions are answered. And we are bizarrely over time, and I might just have to resign myself to the fact that I can't do this program in 1 hour increments, that we might have to just say they're 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and I just might have to be okay with that. So we'll have to get you guys' feedback on that. But thank you for showing up today, and we will see you guys on the Facebook group this week. Okay, bye.